Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you listen, wherever you listen. It's the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast. Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast brought to you by Bet Online. Go to betonline.ag. Go to get all your latest minute odds, stats, and updates on all sporting events from tennis, soccer, hockey, college football, pro football. Bet Online, where the game starts. Also, don't forget to go to Underdog Fantasy, the ultimate fantasy. Go to Underdog Fantasy app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Put in promo code USCLAFB and get $100 welcome bonus. Madman, how are you doing this wonderful Monday?
Doing well, Coach. Great to see you. Obviously, we had our show yesterday morning. Isn't it interesting, Coach, like the gap between Sunday morning and Monday night when we record next? It feels like a week, and it's just so been a day and a half. Because so much happens in the land of USC. Obviously, we have to digest the previous game. We have to sort of deal with all of the emotions. Fans have to let it all out. And then the madness of recruiting is upon us. Obviously, LAFB's got you covered all week. We're going to go live on Wednesday after signing day. Then we're going to do another recap show on Thursday to sort of break it down more from an analysis standpoint in addition to today. So we got you covered all week. And so, Coach, this is going to be a fun one for us. You and me, it's kind of a pajama party this week. Like, let's get our PJs, our popcorn, and talk about our crushes in high school. I mean, that's what this week feels like.
That's what I wanted to do for Victory Bell Week, but you guys bailed on me. I'm like, let's just load it all up as much as we can. And you guys like, nah. But, like you said, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. I mean, it's a big week. Unfortunately, we won't have any live show on Sunday. The season's over for us. But we should be having a live show on Sunday for the Big Ten Championship, but it is what it is. I'm not going to
Coach, maybe you and Kenny can go live, for the Big Ten.
So it's funny you say that. So Kenny's wife texted us like maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and she was like, because Oregon's volleyball team made it I thought it was volleyball, but they made it to the Big Ten Championship also.
Wow.
And she was like, yeah, you guys could come. Well, the kids are going to do something prior to. And she's like, yeah, you guys could come over and for the Big Ten Championship, blah, 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 for volleyball. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. How come you guys didn't do? Nope, it's football. I totally messed that up. But anyway, because it was like Oregon's like the first Big Ten championship in the conference. I was like, wait, women's soccer is the first Big Ten champion in the conference, SC women's soccer. She was like, well, you didn't tell me, I would have done it. So she was open to doing it, but she was like, you didn't tell me. Like, so SC has the first Big Ten championship
Absolutely.
As a newcomer. It's not football, but it would have not been football regardless because of soccer. But Madman, I want to tell you something that was funny. I was listening to the radio today, and he was on the radio. I'm not going to tell you who it is until the end. And they were talking about SC and where they go, blah, blah, blah. And this is a quote from this guy who actually said this. I always wanted to go to SC. I would have went there, but I couldn't pass up the SMU offer. Who do you think said that?
Eric Dickerson.
Yes. I heard that. I was in the car. I was just dying laughing. I was like, that is the craziest quote I've ever heard about. His daughter goes to SC. Did you know that? Like,
yeah.
He's like a true SC fan.
Coach, it's very interesting that you say that. There's a lot of parallels actually between USC and SMU. Like if you actually talk about from a university perspective, people ask me all the time. They're like, you went to SC undergrad. What's sort of the comp of SC? Is it UCLA? And I'm like, no, not. They're culturally very different schools. Is it Stanford? I'm like, no, they're culturally very different schools. The comp is actually SMU. When you think about, the demographic of student, when you talk about the level of school spirit, when you talk about how strong the alumni network is, like in the region, USC SoCal alumni network. And then you talk about SMU's alumni network and like that Dallas metro, the DFW area, very, very strong. And so there's a lot of similarities there between USC and SMU. And then I would say the other kind of third school that just from an experience standpoint is also very similar as University of Miami. The USC and SMU, the three of them are a lot more similar than any others, when you talk about USC comp.
I think the only difference is location.
Yeah.
When you think about it, like the only difference is legit location, but they're all private schools.
All private schools, all really tight alumni networks regionally. all big time school spirit, very like in your face school spirit, and then like the rest of the region kind of doesn't like that, and it's all very fun.
And people hate the fact that they have this NIL deal, and SMU's like, oh, let us show you how to do NIL. We did NIL way
back. The Pony Excess, coach. Come on now. And it's ironic that Eric Dickerson's daughter is at USC, and then Matt Leinert's son is going to go to SMU, right?
That is
so
crazy.
it all comes full circle.
It's a whole different world out there, man.
Just my wife is from Dallas originally, so like I know that area, and so it's for sure it's a different world.
Yeah, I just thought that was that's why I was like, I'm gonna tell you when we start, because I don't want to ruin it for you, because I want to see like the raw reaction. That's just one of the craziest quotes I've ever heard. Can you imagine Eric Dickerson in the backfield at USC though? He would have won a Heisman.
Oh my God! And that too, because remember that team, and we'll get to SC here in a second, coach. But remember, it was Eric Dickerson and Craig James, right?
Yep.
That was the Pony Express, and that was when you talk about 1980, 81, 82, 83. I mean, SMU was a dominant team in college football. Who was the running back one of USC in 1981? Coach, was Marcus Allen. Can you imagine a two-headed running back monster of Eric Dickerson and Marcus Allen? I mean, when you talk about student body right, student body left, like if SC threw the ball more than 5 times a game, like that would be 5 times too many, considering what those two guys were.
And then you have to remember, Marcus Allen was the fullback for Charles White.
Yes.
So like that would have been, oh man.
Yeah.
Only if. Let's jump into SC.
Let's do it.
Before we jump into SC, I don't care how people feel about this. I respect this. I don't. But I respect this young man because he was on the sideline on Saturday.
Yep.
When he lost his spot, he stayed on the sideline. We knew he was going to transfer. He had every opportunity to do what the rest of everybody did, and he did not. He stayed there. He walked out for senior day. Today, he announced that he's going to officially enter the portal and finish his grad year, which I already thought he was like working on like his third master's. But I mean, he's a Marshall graduate. He's going to go on to do great things. I still think he has a very good shot in the NFL. I don't care what people say. And you know why I think that? You mentioned it the other day. You said his intermediate game is really good. That's what makes him a very good pro quarterback. You know what I mean? That intermediate game. But Miller Moss, man, I'm going to take time to appreciate him. I appreciate everything he did. That's a true kid with character in today's landscape.
Yes.
Like he didn't have to do what he did, and he did it. He stayed. He was forced into the portal. I think the portal is for situations like this. Like, so he's taking advantage of it. I wish him nothing but the best. I'm going to follow his career. I hope he has a stellar season next year. And I hope he goes on Thursday in the NFL draft and next year's draft, man. I appreciate Miller Moss, everything he did. I think we just owe it to him to at least give him some type of kudos, and I hope he sees this. I appreciate you, Miller Moss. You handled this with class, and I respect everything about you and the way you did it.
Absolutely. So well said, Coach. And I'm so happy we're opening the show in that regard. Miller Moss epitomizes everything that you want a USC Trojan to be. When you talk about competitor, when you talk about character, when you talk about teammate, leader, person in the community, family man, the right values, the right sort of intellect. I mean, everything that you want to sort of bottle up and channel into a Trojan, right? Look at all the values that are inscribed in Tommy Trojan, right, Coach? Like the values of a Trojan. Miller Moss really epitomizes all of those values. And to wait his turn, to be behind inarguably the best player in college football, and then to be able to get his shot and play it out in that way. And then unfortunately for it to end this way, just really proud of Miller Moss throughout his whole journey and how he handled things, Coach. Because, honestly, you could be in a situation where had he gotten pulled, so many other players would have regressed from the team, would have regressed from sort of team activities. And it must have been very difficult these last few weeks. And we had touched on that a couple of weeks ago, because to truly be a USC quarterback, to truly feel like you are a USC quarterback, regardless of the win-loss record, regardless of making the Rose Bowl or not, regardless of what your stats are, regardless of what your accolades are, what are the two things you have to do to be a true USC quarterback? You got to play Notre Dame and you got to play USC and UCLA. And unfortunately, Miller Moss was unable to do those two things, and yet still demonstrated the character and wasn't a distraction in any way. He's so talented, and all of us as Trojan fans need to be rooting for him wherever he goes, Coach. And, we salute him. He's a Trojan for life. He's always going to be a part of the Trojan family. And I'm really excited, Coach, for where he's going to end up. I think there's some very interesting possibilities. And let's just touch on that for a minute here before we talk SC recruiting. I think, Coach, a place like Stanford is a very real possibility. When you talk about his mom went to Stanford, his sister currently goes to Stanford. Andrew Luck just became the general manager of the Stanford football department, as a great quarterback, understanding sort of what it means to balance great academics, great athletics. I think Stanford could be a very real possibility for him. I think Michigan could be a really nice possibility for him. Obviously, Michigan just got Underwood, but you wonder, does Michigan want to throw Underwood in as a true freshman? We had this conversation about Longstreet in our last show. Are you truly a healthy program if you have to throw in a true freshman? How about have Miller Moss come in for a year, Underwood kind of learn from him about what it means to be a great player on the field, a great leader off the field, and now Underwood is set up for success. So Michigan could be a possibility. I think Ole Miss could be a possibility, Coach, with Jackson Dart leaving, our old friend, the Lane Train. Can you imagine Lane Kiffin getting in the shop, getting in the lab with Miller Moss, and him playing sort of SEC ball as really an opportunity to play in the NFL? If he wants to stay in LA, he could go to UCLA. I mean, there's all kinds of very interesting possibilities for Miller Moss. And so very excited for him. And I want him to have the best situation possible to really see him succeed. But it was a great run. And again, like I said, we will always have that Holiday Bowl performance, and we'll always sort of remember it as a significant game. And then let's not forget, we'll always have that LSU game. And Miller Moss still has the designation of having USC's first AP top 15 victory at the time since 2017, Coach. So over the last 7 years, there's only one quarterback that has beaten a top 15 team, and that's Miller Moss. So really excited about his future, and we wish him nothing but the best.
Miller Moss is probably a hot free agent right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, when you really sit and think about it, you like, man, this is a 6-year guy. This is going to be a guy that could come in and execute our offense and run the offense and run it how we need to run. Those schools, the only one that worries me, I don't think he fits Stanford's style, because that Troy Smith style is kind of like Lincoln Riley's a little bit, even though they run a little bit more. But Lane could get him to work. Michigan might be the spot for him. And knowing how the stars align, next year SC goes right 11-1, and then all of a sudden you're in the Big Ten championship against Michigan.
Coach, I mean, let's not forget next year's schedule. Michigan comes to the Coliseum. Can you imagine in the regular season?
Next year, or is that 2 years?
No, next year Michigan comes to the Coliseum. See? So. I mean, can you imagine a Miller Moss return? Moss versus Maeva, potentially at the Coliseum? My goodness, that would be something else.
I guarantee you, if that happens, we will be at the Coliseum live, right next to the game day booth, trying to pick off all the fans. No, but that definitely, that he's a hot free agent. Follow his career, guys. Don't trash Miller Moss. That's a Trojan through and through. That is, if you think of a Trojan in today's era, that is Miller Moss. Transferring into that, thank you, Miller Moss. We appreciate you, man. Transferring to that, boy, it's crazy out there right now. It's crazy out there right now. I'm gonna knock on wood again. It's been really silent with USC in the transfer portal. I hope I don't jinx it, and tomorrow it just goes crazy, but it's been really silent. I wanted to say one thing. I think Miller Moss would have suited up for the bowl game if the portal didn't open up so soon.
Right.
Just based on the timeline. Speaking of timeline, so I was listening to my guys LeVar Arrington and Brady Quinn this morning on the way in work. And Brady Quinn made a very good point. He spoke of the timeline and why it's harder to fire coaches now, right? So think of this timeline. And we'll use Lincoln Riley. Say we fire Lincoln Riley, which I'm still on that train. And if I had enough money, I will put in the money to do it. I will 190, here you go, tax write-off. But neither here nor there. In 2 days is National Signing Day, right? The next week, the transfer portal opens.
Right.
Then you have a bowl game, and then you go through spring ball, and then you have National Signing Day. Then you have a bowl game. You get some off time. Then in February, you have National Signing Day again for the remainder. and then you go through spring ball, the portal opens again, and next thing you know, you're in your season. How can you build a roster if you don't have a coach? Right. You know what I mean? Like, the timeline today is so small, and that's why you can't get through coaches. But then when you think about it, it's like transfer portal. I mean, people are entering the portal. The portal opens up next week, and it's already crazy, right? We got quarterbacks in there that are looking like good backups for USC. Some defensive linemen are entering the transfer portal. It just went crazy today. I'm still a little worried, though, man. I know the portal's wide open. I'm all for a backup quarterback and getting a backup quarterback out of the portal. If the kid is not a freshman or a sophomore, and of course chasing money, but I know they're going to kill me in the comments. That's today's game, blah blah blah. But we gotta limit on chasing money, guys, because it goes all for naught. There's no return on the ROI. But do we build the front seven out of the portal, or do we build the front seven out of recruiting? I don't think we could establish a good enough front seven if we build it out of the portal. Just that cohesiveness that you get. You know what I mean? I feel like it's rentals. It's like baseball. You get a guy at the deadline, you're just using them to try to win the pennant.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Like, where do we go from
there? Coach, I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, there are these two worlds colliding, to your point, starting today, right? Guys are starting to get into the portal. It's been quiet for USC from a portal standpoint, but it's been very noisy from a high school recruiting standpoint, right? And the big day is National Signing Day on Wednesday. And obviously we got you covered here at LAFBnetwork.com. But, Coach, look, I mean, big decommitment today with Jerome Miles, the 5-star wide receiver, highest-rated player in this class from Draper, Utah. He visited Texas A&M. I think that Texas A&M game, it looks like he's probably going to go A&M. And now we're sort of focusing on Jakeem Stewart. We're focusing on Madden Faremo, and we're focusing on Christian Ingram. I think those are the three guys right now that USC should be most focused on, because Jakeem Stewart, defensive lineman, edge, Christian Ingram, interior defensive lineman, Madden Faremo, linebacker, sort of built off of the ilk, if you will, Coach, of Mauluga, and sort of that type of player, sideline to sideline explosive. And so for me, I'm less worried about a Jerome Miles decommitting, because Lincoln's going to get his receivers. Lincoln's going to get his quarterbacks. We already have receivers. I mean, we've got Makai Lemon. We've got Deuce Robinson really as sort of Maeva's primary targets. I'm not worried about the passing game. The question on everybody's mind moving forward is, what happens to this defensive front, right? I mean, it's all about defensive front. We've got, I think, a couple of pillars that we can build around. Cam Fountain, Sam Green. I think Tompkins is okay. I think Anthony Lucas, a healthy Anthony Lucas, I still think can do a lot of great things. And then now it's going to depend on... You keep
forgetting Coach. Shelby. I think Shelby is the best one.
Shelby showing spots, I'll be honest with you, Coach. I was a little underwhelmed with Shelby this year, though. I mean, he showed a lot of flashes his freshman year. I thought he was going to kind of make that jump. Let's hope that the junior year is the big jump with Shelby. So I think we've got 4 or 5 guys there. But again, it's depth, right? Like, everyone's got to stay healthy. Everyone's got to, not even be banged up to a certain extent. So to me, the key is going to be, can you go get Jakeem Stewart? Can you go get Ingram to sort of fortify the depth? And how well can they sort of be even just contributors in year one with the recruiting class that you had last year? I think if you can get those guys, then, Coach, you're less frenetic about the transfer portal. You're still going to need... Where you're going to have to really hit the portal hard, Coach, I believe, is the secondary. And where they're going to have to hit the portal really hard, I think, is to also fortify the offensive line. And I think where they're going to have to hit the portal really hard is at running back, because you got to be able to replace Woody Marks. Obviously, we've got Joyner, but we got Nicholson, but really nothing beyond that, right? And so I think the key there is going to be, how do you get running back depth? How do you get offensive line depth? How do you get secondary? But if you don't get Jakeem Stewart and you don't get Ingram, then, Coach, you're in a position where I don't think Lincoln can afford to sort of rely on projects, because at the end of the day, if he does not fortify this defensive front, this is not going to be a playoff team next year. And if this is not a playoff team next year, Lincoln Riley should not be the coach in 2026. So this is where the incentives are a little bit misaligned, right? Like he's at the point where the time to go recruit is year 0, year 1, where like you've got the rope. Lincoln's run out of rope now. And so now if he doesn't hit a home run with Stewart and doesn't get kind of an Ingram, now you got to go to the portal to be able to go get guys, because even your portal guys that you got from last year that were kind of your glue guys, Clifton, Meyer, Kobe, Pep, all sort of good serviceable players, rotational pieces, all those guys are gone, right? So you're going to have to sort of fortify the depth here moving forward. So long story short there, Coach, I think if you can hit the home run in terms of recruiting from a high school perspective, then you can afford to do a little bit less in the portal. If you strike out with Stewart and you strike out with Ingram, now you're talking about you need a fire sale in terms of the portal.
So Jakeem Stewart is an edge rusher, right?
Yep.
So we already have edge rushers, right? And then the other guy.
Well, Coach, do we?
Yeah, you just named.
I know. Yes, but I'm saying we're relying on 2 guys. Anthony Lucas got hurt game 6, right? And so you need, on a defensive front, Coach, you would know this better than anyone. I think to be a really good team, you probably need 8 quality defensive linemen.
Oh, you're talking depth-wise. Depth-wise.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got you.
Right.
What I was
I'm saying depth, right? Like we've got, we think Green is going to be good. I think we've seen flashes, but he's still got to make a step. We think Shelby's going to be good, but he's still got to make a step. We sort of know Cam Fountain's going to be good because he's sort of shown us more, and we're hoping Lucas can stay healthy, and we know that Tompkins can be sort of a nice rotational piece. So let's just say logic prevails here, Coach. Let's say between Shelby and Green, one of those 2 guys hit and the other one doesn't. That's roughly how this thing shakes out. So you got one good player between one of those 2. Fountain hits, and then let's say Lucas stays healthy, So now you got 3 guys, but you need another 4 or 5 guys to be able to kind of stay fresh, to be able to stay healthy, to be able to stay consistent. So that's where you're really sort of looking at in terms of moving forward. On any one Saturday, you can line up and be pretty decent, pretty good, but it's sort of the wear and tear, right? Look what we saw against Notre Dame. It was a defense that just got sort of bullied more and more as the game went on. You're not always going to be able to rely on their star running back getting hurt, for you to sort of get back in the game. So I think from a depth perspective, Coach, you really got to lean in hard in terms of front 7. I'm feeling good about the linebackers in terms of, obviously we lost Tahj Jackson, which was tough, but we've got others that I think we're feeling good about. But I think it's really that defensive front.
I just jinxed it. Just broke on LAFB Network. USC Trojans Emil Tailili to enter the portal. Emil Tailili. 3-star out of Santa Clarita, 9th ranked class. He redshirted. He saw over 100 snaps this season, primarily on special teams. And so he entered the portal. He gave the normal thing. First, I want to thank God on my team first and foremost, but he'll be entering the portal. 3-star guy. I didn't even know who that was. When I made that face, you kind of looked like who? So, hurts depth wise.
Talalele. Yeah. You use a rotational piece from an offensive. So that was offensive line.
O-lineman guy.
But again, Coach, the 2 big losses we're going to have on the line is Monheim and Pregnon, right? Those 2 guys are going to be gone. And so,
you know what? You remember how hard I was on Jonah Monheim?
Yeah.
He was an excellent center.
He was.
He was an excellent center.
I would argue, I think Paige has the biggest upside, and he really showed, I think, some great things over the course of the second half of the season. And I think he's a budding star, and I think he's on the cusp of superstardom. He got
better, yes.
He's on the cusp. But in terms of just overall consistency, Monheim and Pregnon were our 2 most consistent offensive linemen all year. And so, now you got to fortify those 2 spots, right? And so moving forward now, you need offensive line depth. You've done a nice job here in the portal. But it's the trench play, coach. It's trench play depth is where this team really needs to go.
I did it, and correct me if I'm wrong. And this is I'm getting into my week season here. I'm no longer evaluating games. I'm starting to get in the roster.
Get ready, coach. 9 months of this now.
Yeah, so. I know. This is my weakest point. I'm good for 12 weeks out of the year, and then this is where you and Ryan shine. The past 2 years, didn't they recruit heavy offensive line? Didn't they get some good offensive linemen?
Yeah, I know. We've gotten 4 to 5 good players the last couple of years. So let's see how they solidify. So I think that's going to be kind of a key moving forward.
But we lost
again,
2.
Coach. Sorry,
we lost 2.
Yeah,
we lost the kid from Florida.
Yeah,
that was only there for a spring.
The IMG kid. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and then we just lost the Amos kid. So now we have either 3 to 2 guys from those classes, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, Coach. It's about inputs and outputs, right? I mean, that we sometimes sort of forget that, right? Like, this is a system. Sometimes we sort of have to apply systems thinking. And what all that means is, what's coming in versus what's going out. And if we feel like what's coming in is significantly greater than what's coming out, then we're going to feel really good about things. If it's about equal, then talent-wise, you're about equal, over the course of the year. And then it comes down more to execution. It comes more down to coaching. It comes more down to health. It comes more down to strength and conditioning. So I think that's where Wednesday is going to be that first data point, Coach, of, hey, did we close on Faremo? Did we close on Ingram? Did we get Jakeem? I mean, there was all this conversation, Coach, over the past weekend with Jakeem Stewart, right, where it's like he had one more visit. He visited USC, wined and dined him, right? Showed him a great time, took him to SoFi, took him to Sony Studios and Marvel and Disney and all the USC alums and entertainment, sort of, showed him the works, showed him a lot of great Los Angeles real estate through the real estate network of USC, really showed kind of the power of like the Southern California, Trojan brand and network. Had a great visit. Then there was a sense that he was going to go visit perhaps Ohio State, Michigan game this weekend, or potentially that LSU Oklahoma game this weekend. And then it came out that, he's canceled his visits. There was a thought that he might even go to Oregon, canceled all his visits. So you're feeling really good. And then there's sort of a rumor that came out that, he was grilling over the weekend. So everyone's like, oh, he's great. But then it was like, wow, that's a really nice house that he's grilling at. And some people thought it was Brian Kelly's house that he was grilling at. So, this thing is just so wild right now, Coach, that this thing can go any number of ways. But I think Jakeem's a big one. I mean, if we can get Jakeem, that's a game changer next year, Coach, because you start putting Stewart now with Fountain and Green and Lucas and Tompkins. Now you're starting to kind of get something.
Yeah, and so the point I was getting at was that we don't have enough one techs and 3 techs. Like,
yes,
we're building depth on the edge, but we're not building depth in the core
on the interior. Yep,
you know what I mean. So that's why I was asking just Jakeem Stewart, and then
but that's why Ingram's a really good player.
Ingram is the inside guy, right?
Yep.
So I mean, we get Ingram. And then we got Cam Fountain, right? And then we got Green. Those are the inside guys, but that's only 3 guys.
No,
right?
That's what I'm saying, right? There's a depth thing. And frankly, right. I'm going to be honest with you. Fountain, to me, like we talked about the other day, Coach, he could be this very interesting chess piece on the board because when you see his build, I mean, I really see Laiatu Latu 2.0 there. I really do, in terms of where you can sort of line him up. I think Danton Lynn is identifying him as his queen piece on the chessboard for his defense that's going to make his defense go. So that, to me, Cam Fountain's evolution and Jaden Maeva's evolution, to me, are the 2 greatest evolutions that are going to have the single most impactful sort of barometer of how well USC does in 25 and how big that jump is.
And so you did mention a very good point, right? So if you're solid up front, right? If you're solid up front, then you're okay. You can control the running game. You know what I mean? You won't get hit big on the running game. But if you're solid in the secondary, you're going to give up big plays every now and then.
Yeah.
So with that being said, a big play, and this will make sense to you, right? If I'm only giving up 4 yards, if I'm only giving up 4 rushing yards a series, right? Within 4, that I'm pretty good. But if I'm giving up 50 passing yards a series, I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not doing very good, right? So with the secondary all graduating, right? You got not all graduating, but the safeties are coming back.
Coach, I mean, you know, because you got Jaylin Smith.
Jalen Smith is going to be a first rounder,
right? Vance Jr., Jaylin Smith, Jacoby Covington, Achille Arnold. You know, all of these guys are leaving, right? They're all out of eligibility. Corners. And then Coach Kamari Ramsey is a redshirt sophomore. Like, he could go.
Yeah, I'm hoping the evaluation isn't good.
There was a valuation today that kind of came out that was pretty good, actually. So
I was just being selfish. I don't. Let me disclaim that because I don't want. I'm.
No. I know what you mean. Yeah, absolutely.
But just for the people out there, I want him to go to the NFL. I think he's a really good football player, and if he does get a good evaluation, go make your money. But for the sake of SC, I hope the evaluation is 4th round, potential first rounder. Come back next year, put on better.
I mean, Coach, you lose Ramsey. Okay, that's a big loss.
Ramsey was the communication guy on the defense.
Ramsey was the communication guy. And so now when you sort of take a step back and you're like, okay, Cobb, Mascarenas, Arnold at linebacker, they're going to be gone. Right? You're going to get Gentry back. Knock on wood, he can stay healthy, but you're hoping between Gentry, Rajon Davis, Stevens, and one of these kids kind of hitting early, as freshmen, you should be okay. From a linebacker spot. Front depth is still a big question, and then you could have a brand new secondary. So Wednesday is going to be really key, Coach, because it's going to be that first data point of how aggressive you're going to have to go get in the portal. And so that's going to be really, really significant. And, we got to keep our eye on receiver as well. We sort of hinted at it, and I know we're sort of popping around. It's kind of a popcorn episode tonight, but Lane, Branch, you wonder. Lane was always my wide receiver one. The way you love Lemon, I love Lane. I mean, we all love him, but, those were sort of our picks. I got to wonder, though. Lane, Maeva and Lane have this really nice connection in the red zone, which you got to love. But if I'm Lane, I'm like, is that going to be enough film to sort of get me to the next level? If I'm averaging 35, 40 yards receiving, 35 yards receiving, and I'm getting a touchdown every game, like, is that good enough?
But if he gets 3 every game, that's good enough.
Yeah. I mean, but if I'm getting 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown every game, like, is that enough? Is that good enough for the NFL? Where, again, Lane is also a little bit slender, right, Coach? So the question is going to be, okay, you were able to sort of get those 50-50 balls in college, but are you going to be able to do that in the NFL? I mean, it was the knock on Jarrett, right? I mean, the DJ didn't pan out in the NFL because he didn't get physical enough, right? The things that were that inside slant. Remember, how many times did Leinart hit him on that inside slant from like 18 to 22 yards away, right? I mean, that was go back and look at the Jarrett tape. 90% of Dwayne Jarrett touchdowns were inside slants between 18 and 22 yards, but he wasn't able to get that leverage in the NFL because of the size. Right? Because he just couldn't kind of rotate his hips. He couldn't kind of create that leverage with his center of gravity. That's going to be the question with Lane because they're built the exact same way. You got great ball skills. You got a great catch radius. But are you sort of an every down wide receiver in college that will allow you to at least be a specialist in the NFL? If you're just a specialist in college, very hard to stay a specialist in the NFL, right? So Lane is going to have a decision on his hands. You got to wonder with Branch. I love the kid. I love both Branch brothers. When we talk about a kid like Miller Moss, another group of kids that really epitomizes all of the Trojan values in the best way. But after the season he had, lack of separation, he looks slower. Now Makai has taken his kickoffs. He hasn't really done much in the punt return game. Remember, he was an All-American special teamer last year. He wasn't an All-American wide receiver last year. He made All-America through the special teams, and half of the special teams has been taken away from him now. So where do you go from here if you're Zach Branch, particularly if Jaden Maeva is going to be the quarterback and he's all about these 50-50, level 3 jump balls? That's not really Branch's game at all. He's not built for it. It's not his size. So don't be surprised if Branch and Lane explore the transfer portal. We talked earlier about Hudson going pro. So it really does feel like it's going to be Lemon and Deuce as the primary two receivers. I think Joyner is going to find his way as running back, and then Maiev at quarterback. So you have sort of a sense of identity there. But offensive line depth, defensive line depth, secondary getting replenished, and is there going to be a linebacker that really emerges as the leader for a 12, 13, 14 game period? I mean, those are really going to be top of mind questions here moving forward.
Those are way too many questions to have to be on the hot seat.
That's exactly right.
That's a lot of questions to have for you to be on the hot seat. Like, if you don't understand you're on the hot seat, like, there's stuff floating around still. Like, maybe we could pull this off financially. Like, you have to know that. Like, the conversation you had with Jen today was not a good conversation. There's no way you could tell me you walked into Jen Cohen's office today at the end of the season and she said, I really like the direction you're going. And you know what I mean? Like, it had to be, look, you're 6-6. I was making the national championship at Washington with less. Like, what's going on here? You know, and you could throw the excuse as well. The NIL is not this and the NIL is not that. At the end of the day, this is the state with the most billionaires in America. You have to make these billionaires donate money. And they're not going to donate money if they don't see any progress, right? And there's a reason why they're billionaires. They're not billionaires because they're done with money. They're billionaires because they're very smart with their money. They make wise investments. At this point, why would I donate a bunch of money to the NIL? You give this kid a bunch of money to keep him to stay, and then all of a sudden, 3 games in, he transfers. Or you give a kid a bunch of money and he comes in early and then he bounces as soon as the spring portal opens. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that, you know, that's not going to make these kids donate money. Like, there's no way you could. There's just a lot of questions, and you're in the position that you're in. And that is the scary part for me. Like, you have
Coach,
way
it's
too many
very
holes.
interesting. You know, I think one of the topics we haven't, because you're so right, but one of the topics we haven't really spoken about as a result of NIL is the USC donor profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked so much about NIL is top 15, but it's not Oregon, and it's not Texas A&M, and it's not Georgia.
SMU.
And, you know, it's not SMU.
SMU's
no, there's a lot. SMU has a lot of money.
There's
a lot of money in Dallas area and all of that.
They raised $108 million in 2 days.
There's a lot of money down there. There's no doubt about that. But you got to ask, what is the donor profile of USC? And it's very simple, right?
Rick Caruso.
What were the two periods, Coach? Okay, that we remember. Like, USC football has 11 national championships, has 8 Heisman Trophy winners, et cetera, in terms of All-Americans, NFL players, you know, down the list we go. But if you break down USC football, it was 3 great eras of USC football over the course of 120 years, right? There was the Howard Jones era of the 20s and 30s. There was the John McKay era of the 60s and 70s, of which John Robinson got the last of those national championships in 1978. And then there was the Pete Carroll era. So let's just sort of break this down. Who are the biggest donors for any football program? The biggest donors of any football program are individuals that went to that college at a time that the football program was great. So Howard Jones was in the 20s and 30s. If you went to college in the 20s and 30s, unfortunately, you have passed away, right?
Yeah.
So the Howard Jones era doesn't really sort of have significance in terms of the donor profile. Unfortunately, those individuals have passed away. If you're in the John McKay era and you went to college there, right, early 60s to 1978, you are at youngest 70 and more likely closer to 80. So you have either given a lot of money already, or you're perhaps about to give more money, or you are on kind of the end. You know, you're sort of in the swan song of life, and perhaps your children don't have the same level of passion for football the way you did. And that's kind of what we're seeing of individuals of that era. And then you've got the Pete Carroll era, where you and I went to school, right? But like the folks that went to school in the Pete Carroll era are like at most 40, right? So like outside of a few folks that have like hit it huge, either through like technology or finance, like very, very few. The folks in the Pete Carroll era are still making their money, right? So the Pete Carroll era hasn't really come home yet from a donor perspective, and the John McKay era is sort of on its last lap from a donor perspective.
And they're going home.
They're going home. We don't want to be flippant about it, but you see, that's where this gap is existing, right? When we talk about the billionaires, we talk about the money. You have the McKay era of folks that are sort of fading away, and their generation and their kin, they don't have the same passion for football, so the money's drying up. And then you've got the Carroll era folks like you and me and others, where you're still sort of making your career. You're still making your moves and all of those things. So it's sort of dry in that sense. There's a potential down the line, but not quite yet. Sure, you've got the now and then, someone hit it big in a startup or someone hit it big in finance. But in general, you don't have like a consistent financial pipeline there. And that's where USC is sitting right now. You've got one base that's a little bit too old, and you've got another base that's a little bit too young, and now you're in this chasm. And so how do you navigate that? That's sort of where we are right now from a donor perspective with USC football.
We reach out to Galen's kids and apologize for what we did wrong and say, we need those checks for $150,000 every halftime. Like, that's what you got to do. No, but that is a good point, because like when we were there, it was legit every halftime, Galen. The basketball arena, Galen. Where we ate our team meal, Galen. Like, Galen's everywhere.
But see, think about that, right, Coach? When we were there, what am I saying? I'm saying the folks in the McKay era are now 70 and 80.
Right.
When we were there, they were 50 and 60. They were they had just made their money, peaking professionally, right? Retirement age is 65. So they're between 50 and 60. They're crushing it. Like, they're in the peak of their career. They got their most money, their most purchasing power. That's why we were seeing what we were seeing at halftime. Now, those folks that were crushing it, now they're in retirement, past retirement, and they've sort of done their philanthropy. They've given their money. Sure, there's folks that'll give more, but they're starting to sort of fade away into the sunset. So who is taking that barometer, right? Who's taking the baton and moving it forward? The Carroll era folks are still a little bit too young. And unfortunately, Coach, the 80s and 90s, SC football didn't do that much. So the connection for football with those graduates isn't as high as it was with the Carroll folks and with the McKay folks, right? That's why there's such a domino effect sometimes with football and college football in particular, where you gotta stay good every 5 to 7 years. You can't like let go of the rope for more than 5 or 6 years because of this domino effect. There's a domino effect when it comes to recruiting. There's a domino effect when it comes to being a destination for coaches. There's a domino effect in terms of donor pipeline. And that's what SC sort of has to find itself out of. And I think that's why we thought Lincoln was going to be this last gasp of like $10 million a year for the coach. And like, we're going to just rally the troops, circle the wagons, and we're going to go put our money into this guy who was 55-10 at Oklahoma and let him figure out some of these systemic issues and get us back to that. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out. But that's, I think, why so many people say, man, SC is such a rich school. Like, why are we talking about we can't compete with school X, Y, and Z in terms of NIL? Because this is why. You can't sort of look at the donor profile of the whole university and just apply it to the football program. You have to look at the donor profile of just the football program, right? Because it's targeted money.
Well, here's a little something I learned in coaching. A lot of schools don't do it. And it's a risk if you do it. You could actually take a loan out on a program. So Marshall School of Business, right? Let's just say Marshall School of Business, their valuation is $2 billion. I'm just throwing numbers out there. I know it's not factual. You take a loan out on it, $2 billion, you get money back, and you put that money in NIL. But the problem is why schools don't do it is because sometimes you don't get the return back. Now you just sunk the Marshall School of Business. You know what I mean? It's a scary thing. I was at a school that I was about to do it in Texas, and then somebody walked them off that bridge like, no, don't do it. You could also do it in a way how most schools build stadiums. They raise the student activity fee.
Right.
why are we not getting a percentage of student activity fee and sending it to NIL? Right? When you think about it, like, is that not an ethical thing to do? I haven't really thought about it, but it kind of popped up on me one day. Like, when you want to build a stadium, you raise the student activity fees, you get that stadium built. I know it's not the source of the income, but it's some funding you could get. Why are we not taking a percentage out of student activity fees and then putting it into NIL? Not a small percentage. If you take 1% of student activity fees and put it in NIL, it's for the student lifestyle. If you got a very good football team, you have very good Saturday nights, right? Like, it's, it's not anything that tarnishes or doing anything like that. But I feel like that's the way to do it too. But you're 100% right. Like, I don't know anybody that struck it big yet. I know people from SC who are doing well. You'd be like, oh, they're on their way. But I don't know anybody that's like, oh, there's the next Jaylin. I went to school.
Right. Because it just takes time, right, Coach? That's the thing.
Yeah, it takes time to establish yourself in a career. Like the new Red Lobster CEO, 34 years old. That's how many CEOs are 34 years old?
Exactly.
That dude's not ready to be a CEO. There's so much stuff that you have to like fail at to become a CEO. Like, and I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Like, you need to fail a lot.
Totally.
Before you become successful. And he hasn't failed enough at 34. I'm 36. I'll be 37. I haven't failed enough in order for me to be successful in my career. And I need to fail more so I know what to do and live. But like, there's nobody striking big. You're 100% right. The difference between the SEC though, and between out here is there's old money. So, and it's ingrained in the lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, so let's just take Howard Jones, John McKay, Pete Carroll, right? That Howard Jones fan is a Georgia Bulldog fan.
Yeah.
And that money's passed
the Howard Jones fan is the grandfather. The
right.
John McKay fan is the father, and the Pete Carroll fan is the son. And it just you pass it on in a very
that money's
way.
going to the Bulldogs or you're out of the wheel. You know what I mean? And so
exactly.
It's just ingrained because that's all they have.
Yes.
Right? When you think about it, like, I know Georgia has the Falcons and they have the Braves and they have the Hawks, but when you go to small towns in Georgia, it's a lot different than going to a small city. It's a lot different than going to Long Beach or Lakewood, California, compared to going to like Warner Robins, Georgia. It's a whole different
absolutely,
lifestyle.
Coach.
So that's why, because I know that question is going to go up. Well, why can't other schools do it? It's ingrained in their lifestyle, and we do have people who have it ingrained. Miller Moss, it's ingrained in his lifestyle.
It's just the quantity of people.
Yes, there you go. We don't have enough.
It's the quantity of people because it's so ingrained in that lifestyle. Because it's just football is in the blood in the South. Football is in the blood in the Midwest. Like, at Michigan and Ohio State, you don't have as many pro teams to be dealing with, so they're bigger brands. They're located in more college-y towns as a result. And then also, Coach, it's also kind of the ROI is built in a lot of ways. Like a lot of, and I'm not going to sort of generalize, but a lot of money in the South and in the Midwest, it's all different kinds of money. There's oil money, there's tech money, there's all this. But a lot of money is actually a lot of franchisee money, where it's like the individual that owns like 100 Burger Kings, like the way Magic Johnson does.
Yeah.
And that individual who's extremely wealthy, like if you own 100 Burger Kings, like, you don't need to do anything. Like, just enjoy your life. But that individual will give to, say, Georgia or LSU, but then it'll be known that person gave to the football program. So now everyone's going to go to that person's Burger King to sort of eat, to support that individual because they supported the football team because it's ingrained in the culture. Or I have 35 car dealerships, and now I'm going to go give, NIL, and I'm going to use it as a marketing ploy. Like, the players are using my cars, and then all those fans are like, wow, that individual gave so much for our team to be successful. Now when it's time for me to buy a car, I'm going to go buy a car from him or her because they're doing so much for the team. So the ROI is built in there, okay? So it's ingrained in the culture. It's less pro teams that you're competing with, but then you also have sort of a built-in ROI, right? If I own, a lot of commercial real estate in Los Angeles, what exactly is the ROI of like giving to the USC football team, right? Like, Caleb could do sort of a commercial for one of my properties, but I mean, is that really going to move the needle for commercial real estate? Probably not. So there's all kinds of interesting economics here at play as to why, we're doing well in NIL, but why we're not on that top end. There's behavioral economics, and then there's actually sort of quantitative economics as to why.
And you also got to look at it like this. This is a very good point, and I don't think a lot of people realize this. Going to a Georgia Bulldog game is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right? It's a lifestyle. I got to go see the Bulldogs. If I'm not going to see the Bulldogs, I'm watching the Bulldogs. Going to a SC game is a privilege.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Going to a SC game, going to a Dodger game, and I should say it like this. Going to a SC game is sitting in good seats, not sitting in the sky in the nosebleeds just to be there. But like going to the SC game, going to a Dodger game, going to a Laker game, going to a Rams game, and sitting in good seats is a privilege.
Yes.
And it's a lifestyle that the average person isn't a part of. Compared to going to a Georgia game, it's a lifestyle that the average person is a part of. So like, and then if people counter that, well, they should start donating money. But then at the end of the day, it's like, what am I going to get out of donating this money? It's funny because we have an abatement guy. He's a abatement specialist. So he's watching the abatement on our project right now. He has season tickets at SC. So I hit him with that. I was like, oh, you got season tickets? He was like, yeah. I was like, that's cool. Like, that means your business. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I do well. I was like, you going to donate any to NIL? He's like, I'm like, I mean, you don't you want to pay for a good product? That's the only way you're going to get paid. He's like, yeah, but say I donate $5,000, right? Do I get to control who my $5,000 goes?
Yeah, exactly.
And then what if he doesn't play? I just waste my $5,000.
Right.
Compared to, like you said, like Georgia, if that guy who's an abatement specialist donates $5,000, they'll say, oh, such and such donated $5,000. That's all he has. But then when it's time to do an abatement, when you have
exactly
your building, hey, guy, I got some business for you. Now that $5,000
that was lead. That was marketing spend to go get your next sales. Yeah.
Right, but that next donation turns into $10,000 because business is booming. Business booms. Now I'm saying he's $1 million donor.
Exactly.
I don't think we could ever change that behavior in the economics in LA because that's the LA lifestyle. It used to be you want to come here to get a good degree and you want to be the face of LA. There were no pro teams. They were the pro football team. Now there's a pro football team here. There's 2 pro football teams here, right? There's a pro soccer team that shares a parking lot with you.
Yeah.
That's attracting stars. Like the LA lifestyle, I thought, and I was wrong about this. I thought, oh, NIL's here. SC's going to be a flood with money. You do whatever they wanted to do. But when you really think about it, you're not really a celebrity.
Yeah.
No matter how much money you make. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
You're not really a celebrity because...
No, Coach, I mean, it's a great point, right? I mean, you talked about the lifestyle, and we'll end it on this point that, at a place like Georgia or LSU or Ole Miss, like, it's what you do, right? I mean, again, it comes back to that sort of cultural piece, why it's so important. It's the thing that you do. And even if you're sort of an average person, that's how you'll vacation, or that's how you'll sort of enjoy your weekends versus someone in Southern California, potentially, even with sort of average income, will say, the last time have you heard someone say, oh, we're going to the SC game as part of our vacation, right. like a road game, like, oh, we went to the LSU in Vegas because we wanted a vacation for the weekend. Sure. There's folks that do that, but the number of people that would do that for USC versus the number of people that would do that for, say, an SEC school is so different there. And that's why the underlying economics are so key. And it is interesting, right, Coach, that over the last 45 years, from 1980 till now, it's really 7 years that we were dominant as a program. It was 02 to 08, and it was those 7 years that we didn't have, pro football. The Dodgers were a mess in terms of ownership, right? Think about what was significant about 02 to 08, Coach, in terms of those were Pete's 7 great years. What was so significant about 02 to 08?
02 to 08? SC? That's the only thing. The Lakers didn't win it in 02.
It was in between all the Laker titles.
Yeah,
right? It was Lakers... 02 was the last of the Shaq Kobe, and 09 was the first of Kobe Gasol. And 02 to 08 was in between the Shaq. Then Shaq left. and the Lakers were down, and then, Gasol arrived in March of 08, coach. March of 07, I should say. I mean, that's really what March of 08, sorry. And that's really what sort of changed it, right? So when you think about those dynamics, again, it's the economics. Lakers down, Dodgers down. You don't have LAFC. You don't have the Rams. You don't have the Chargers. You are the game in town. You become the show. You become part of the lifestyle, like you said. Mm-hmm. Now you have 14 pro teams in LA. How are you going to become part of that lifestyle? So it's all very interesting from an economic as well as a business perspective.
This was Sports Economics brought to you by the Madman and Coach Rowe. It's funny because we said, we'll be done in 30 minutes. The next thing you know, we end up rolling and we end up going almost an hour. But, hey, that was a good one, man. I appreciate you. Wednesday's a big one for us. I don't know times yet, but we'll tweet the times out.
For sure. We'll go live.
I'm definitely willing to WFH. I'm just telling you, I'll WFH and we'll do a whole thing like ESPN if you want to.
Let's do it. I love it.
I can make that one work for sure and just tag on. We might even be able to get the Decide guys to jump in here.
Hey, let's bring the whole crew.
Yeah,
the whole
definitely.
Kit and caboodle here.
So, yeah, definitely. I appreciate you, man. That was a good one, fans. Thank you. Don't forget to go to BetOnline. Go to betonline.ag. Go get you some money for Christmas. Also, at Underdog Fantasy, put in promo code USC LAFB, and you get a $100 match. That also gets you some money for Christmas, too. If you want to check out some awesome articles about the other team that the Madman just wrote. No, I'm sorry. He just wrote an article about the tradition of the USC Notre Dame game, right?
Yeah, it's coming out tomorrow. Yep, exactly.
It's coming out tomorrow. Check that out by the Madman. You're going to get some good articles by both Ryan Skinny T and Ryan Dyru. Fantasy articles by Amr Desai. Tad doesn't write very many articles, I don't think, but neither here nor there. Or if you just want to know about your team, the other team across town, Rams, Chargers, or jump into fantasy, go to LAFBnetwork.com and it gets you all there. Speaking of that, you know what? Somebody sent me a picture the other day. It was like, isn't this the network you podcast for? And it was up on the when you hit the start button on the Windows and they put the news there, one of the articles popped up for USC.
Yeah. No, we've become quite the domain authority, coach. LAFB doing big things.
There you go. So check all that out. The 4th will be here talking recruiting. We'll get the time tweeted out, and it'll be good to see. Man, we put another good one in the books. Thank you, fans, for watching. Appreciate you all. You guys know how it goes. Live free. Fight on.